Good evening. I call this public meeting of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors to order on Thursday, November 7th at 6:30 p.m. I would like to remind our community that the purpose of our board meetings is to conduct the business of the district first and for everyone to learn about the district in a safe and productive manner. Our first item on the agenda is community comments. Community comments are an opportunity for our community to share their ideas and opinions with the board. Input is welcomed and valued. It is our duty to keep it safe and respectful for everyone, students, staff, and our community. This is not a time for discussion or debate. If you have materials for the board, please give them to the board secretary, who will then distribute them to the board members after the meeting. Letters to the board are always welcome, and each of us reads the input. Requests for information should be requested as outlined in policy KBA-AR. Any individual desiring to speak will have indicated their desire prior to the board meeting. An individual with a disability will be given an equal opportunity to participate in board meetings. This may include someone speaking on their behalf if their disability or other medical needs limit their ability to attend in person. Board policy also speaks to accommodations available. A speaker will be required to give their name, city of residence, and the group, if any, that is represented. If there are more patrons desiring to present comments than time allotted, the board chair has the authority to reduce the presentation time for individual speakers or institute a prioritization process with first priority to students and city of residence. Speakers may offer objective criticisms of district operations and programs that are of a concern to them. The board is restricted from hearing and will not consider complaints regarding any individual district staff member or any person connected with the district. Comments that make a staff member identifiable to the public, even without their specific name, violate the policy. As an organization centered around youth and their positive development, all speakers will model respectful public comment and be mindful of civil discourse. We will keep the order of speakers announced by me, the chair. Tonight, comments regarding the Student Success Act, Student Investment Account Grant Agreement, as required by Oregon Department of Education, will be prioritized. Seeing none, I will follow our usual order with comments from students first. So Michael, we have you to speak on behalf of Kylie. If you can come on up. And for the record, state your name, city of residence, please. And then your time will begin.
Okay. Michael Corbis, Oak Grove. Tonight, I want to start with talking about two meetings we had with the director of high schools. Is that okay? In the conference room, right over here. One which was in January of this year with a district note taker in attendance, and the other in April this year, just before the election, with 5 district people, including some of you, and a note taker. In each of those meetings, we brought up the fact that only causes and banners that align with progressives seem to be allowed on classroom walls. We were assured that that was not the case and that teachers can hang whatever causes they want to. So we asked that they make a public statement saying that all causes and banners, whether progressive or conservative, be allowed on the walls so that all staff would be aware. And if they could not do that, then they should all come down. In both those meetings, the director of high schools and others in the room said teachers and staff could put up banners or wall hangings for causes no matter how they leaned. The note taker in the January 2023 meeting even chimed in and said staff could hang whatever they want, agreeing with the director. In the April meeting, many nodded their heads as well in agreement. But strangely, the written notes, which were sent to me, did not show this as part of the notes from the meeting. And there was no statement made to teachers about this either. Fast forward to the election, and the conservative candidates lose to many of you. And the summer break happens, and then just before the school year begins, I messaged the director of high schools to ask for the written policy that supports what he said was allowed regarding banners on the wall. And in his email response, his stance, the district stance, contradicted what was said in our previous meetings. and now saying that political banners can't be displayed on walls, and that the banners that were up on the wall were allowed because they were related to someone's identity and not political. Had he purposefully omitted that little detail in hopes that we would give up and go away? And as I've said, we're not going away. We want to get to the bottom of this. Anyway, is it not a violation of the First Amendment and unconstitutional to allow some district staff freedom to promote their progressive causes on the wall if they claim it as an identity? While those staff who identify with a conservative cause or identify as a conservative don't get to promote their causes or group identities on walls because they don't align with district bias. Who determines what identities get representation and which ones don't? Either all identities are posted on the walls or none, but don't favor some over others. And I have the next part here.
All right. Okay, so now you're also signed up to speak for yourself as well.
Yeah.
So again, if you could just state your name and your city of residence again for the record.
Michael Corbis, Oak Grove. Here's just a couple examples that illustrate the district's bias against people who identify as conservative, the political causes they identify with. As you may know, we have heard from many teachers, administration, and parents privately about situations across the district involving this bias. And by the way, anyone, and this is really for the online audience, anyone who wants to contact us can contact us through our Facebook Messenger with your stories. We'd love to hear them. First, a story about a staff member reached out to us and told us that over at Nelson High School, a teacher has a pro-abortion sign hanging up in her classroom. Is that not political in nature, or is that an identity? And if it is an identity, then is pro-life also an identity? And therefore it's okay for a teacher to hang a pro-life sign on the wall? If not, then that would show the bias and be a violation of the First Amendment of those who identify as pro-life. Would it not? Another story, a staff member at Clackamas High School informed us that the high school had another Pride Week, the week after Veterans Day this year. I have a question that many regular folks who identify differently than me in the LGBTQ, people who become friends, have this as well, and it is this. How many special weeks and banners does your favorite group get? And who decides which groups deserve a special week? A good question. Who decides that? Anyway, this staff member said they did nothing for Veterans Day, which is not surprising because Veterans Day is typically seen as a conservative cause, I guess, or something conservatives celebrate, so nobody cares. More proof of bias. Also, for that matter, shouldn't special needs kids like my daughter get a special week and other kids? Or maybe just a day, just one day. She identifies as pro-life after doctors encouraged us to abort her before she was born. Should she not have that honored on the walls of her classroom? Obviously, based on my wife's speech last meeting about the harm these special treatments do to students, we don't really want this. But do you see my point? There is a clear bias on which groups get special treatment and which ones don't. My question is, why do causes we conservatives identify with, and we do have them, even though some of you may not be aware, not get the same representation as causes progressives identify with? The bias drives this disparity, needs to go, and balance of representation needs to be restored, or you are, and the district is in violation of the First Amendment. I don't see how that's not the case. So that's what we're pushing for. But thank you.
All right. The views and opinions expressed during community comments are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors. And the letters we've received via email normally since the last meeting was an email about a concern over allocating resources, an email about detracking math, and an email from OSBA about board information and executive director information. We will now have the native land acknowledgement. Director Bauer, will you lead the acknowledgement this evening?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We acknowledge the land on which we sit and which we call the North Clackamas School District rests on the traditional and indigenous lands and village sites of the native peoples of the Kalapuya, Chinook, Malala, and Clackamas. We take this opportunity to offer gratitude for the ability to learn, work, and be a community on this land. And we offer thanks to the original caretakers of this region. We recognize the historic policies of colonization, genocide, relocation, and assimilation that affected Indigenous and Native families, both past and present, and that will affect those in the future, and honor the resilience and revitalization of our Indigenous and Native communities. We pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, who have been the stewards of this land throughout the generations.
Thank you, Director Bauer. Please rise, and Director Wachter, will you lead the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag tonight, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Directors. In the board packet, you will find the minutes of the November 9th, 2023 meeting of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Wachter proposes to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Is there a second?
Bauer, second.
It has been properly moved by Director Wachter and seconded by Director Bauer. Is there any discussion? I will call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes with a vote of 4-0. Thank you. And our consent agenda this evening includes, in the board packet, you will find the consent agenda for this evening's meeting. The items in the consent agenda are employment changes, Oregon School Boards Association election, Board of Directors Position 8, Oregon School Boards Association election Resolution 1, Oregon School Boards Association election Resolution 2, and Budget Committee position number correction. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Chair, I move approval of the consent agenda, which includes employment changes, Oregon School Association Election Board of Directors Position 8, Oregon School Boards Association Election Resolution 1, Oregon School Board Association Election Resolution 2, Budget Committee position number correction.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? It has been properly moved by Director Bauer and seconded by Director McVeigh. I will call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion passes with a vote of 4-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the North Clackamas Education Association featured educator. I welcome Emma Goldsmith.
Okay, hi, my name is Emma Goldsmith. I teach third grade at Sunnyside Elementary. I have the pleasure of introducing tonight's featured educator of the month and have a few words to share about her. Her name is Andrea Shanks, and I got to know Andrea and her whole family actually pretty well last year because I had her son in my class. She was incredibly supportive to me as a teacher, helped brighten my day on many occasions, would bring me little gifts, which is like a teacher's dream, and volunteered regularly. I would always see her in my building. And she did all of this while still being an educator in her own building, and being an incredible mom. This morning, her son is now in 4th grade across the hall from me, and so I thought it would be nice to ask him for a few words of how he would describe his mom. And he said that she's kind, healthy, dedicated, and ready, which I thought were perfect words to describe her. So good job to her son. While I obviously don't work in the same building as Andrea, I was able to get a deeper understanding of how incredible she is by reading the words of the colleague who nominated her. They say that Andrea has incredible spirit and goes above and beyond to unite and support her Linwood colleagues. She has turned the school's wellness classes into a student favorite, enhanced the SEL program, and implemented a regulation space in a meaningful way. The words energy, joy, engagement, and creativity were used to describe Andrea, and from what I know about her, I couldn't agree more. I'm honored to introduce Andrea Shanks as this month's featured educator. And she's not able to be with us tonight because she's, of course, the PTA president at her school, or at, I guess, my school.
No, at Linwood.
Oh, at Linwood,
At Linwood.
where her kids don't even go. So that just, again, speaks to how incredible she is. I had to think about that for a second. So Michelle Arco is going to read a statement from Andrea.
Yeah. She says, I love North Clackamas and my Linwood school family. I am very thankful to all the teachers in our district. I see each day the massive amounts of love, hard work, and the extra hours all teachers put in. So I accept this in honor of all teachers as they are all so deserving, and I hope that they all feel the love too. The patience, understanding, and empathy that they put into their work each day makes me so proud, and that is why I do what I do, to support the teachers in continuing to have the capacity to do this work with the kids, which in turn benefits all our students. Thank you for your acknowledgement of this work.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or comments from directors? I know she's not here, but I just want to say, I just think it's, this is such a heavy lift right now. So we just appreciate all of the energy that so many of our educators put into making sure that our day goes well for our students. And I want to say that I think it also bodes well how many of our staff members live here. And that this is truly their home. It's not just their job, it's their home, and they live here as well. So I just think that that's just speaks volumes about North Clackamas, and we definitely appreciate all that Andrea Shanks and, of course, all of our educators are doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And next on the agenda is the Linwood Elementary School presentation. I welcome Executive Director of Elementary Programs, Patrizia Ahrens, for this agenda item, who will introduce our guests.
Well, good evening, and what a wonderful way to move to our next agenda item when we just talked about Linwood. So that speaks volume of the wonderful work that they do every single day with the students and families that they serve. And it is very delightful for me to have the honor to introduce you to the Linwood administrators and staff to do their presentation.
All right, is that working? There we go. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you to the school board. Thank you to Dr. James, Dr. Dibley, and Dr. Ahrens. We really appreciate you having us. So my name is Nabil Zarzef, and I'm the principal at Linwood and Sojourner, two separate schools on one campus, both amazing schools. But I'm delighted to be able to speak about Linwood with our folks here. We have a great team that's with us today. We have Brian Cates, who is the assistant principal. We have Bobby Reed, who is a PTA member and also an outstanding volunteer. And then we have Vicky Baraka, who is our instructional coach. On the screen here, we have our mission, which is to inspire graduates who are empowered to act with courage in life and to strengthen local and global communities. It's aligned with our district's strategic plan, and it embodies the outcomes that we're looking for and working toward for each student. So if you would go to the next slide.
I have it.
Oh, you have it. Wow. Maybe I should have it.
Do you want it?
All right, the magic. Today we're going to give you a peek into the school experience at Linwood and just give you an idea about what an average day looks like. I took video clips throughout just one school day and wanted to share it with you. There are a couple clips at the end that are from an assembly, so that's not from the same day. But most of what you'll see was nothing special. I didn't set anybody up to do any of these videos. But I did want to just give you a little snapshot of what that looks like. So let's go ahead and if you can play the video.
have some pie in this thing.
All right, so let me read the.
Let's go ahead and with our partners, try to go.
The word is the.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Yeah! And. Yeah! Yes!
Sound of truck, truck. Let's see, bus. What two letters go truck, truck for tree?
All right, so there's a little peek into what it's like at our school, and you're welcome to stop by anytime. We'd love to have you come visit. You may have noticed as you watched the video that we do have a diverse population of students, and I wanted to share some of the demographics with you by race to give you an idea of the community that we serve. So you'll see the percentages here on the screen. We have additional home languages that are spoken. You can see the different variety of languages which are spoken at Linwood, and that's part of the richness of the community that we have. In the next slide, you'll hear from our instructional coach, Vicky Baraka, about how our academic supports, how the academic supports we have for students, starting with whole class instruction and then diving deeper into how we respond to a wide range of student needs with our multi-tiered systems of support.
So the most important part of the day for all of our students is universal instruction. Universal instruction is also referred to as core, which is a time when all students are receiving instruction at the same time. This year, and many years actually, teachers at Linwood have invested in growing their professional learning in a variety of ways, including during universal instruction. These professional development opportunities include, but aren't limited to, joining the Summer Institute, attending writing professional development led by author and consultant Matt Glover. Several teachers are part of the K-12 literacy cohort, which meets here once a month in the evenings. And by now, most teachers have participated in one lesson study. So now I'm going to go through what each of those acronyms mean. So professional learning communities are a time for teachers to collaborate as a grade level team around a topic that they choose. And as a district, we're shifting to a new PLC model, which is called PDSA, otherwise known as Plan, Do, Study, Act. And during these PLC meetings, teachers review data to determine how to adjust instruction, implement instructional plans, continue to measure effectiveness, and adjust instruction as needed. So what makes our school unique is that at Linwood, they've been doing this for years and they're experts at it, to be honest with you. So a few years ago, teachers in Linwood attended a year-long cohort with professional development included around PLCs. And so while this year PDSA is new, many of the components are very, very familiar to our teachers, and they're very comfortable in professional learning communities, which makes my job a little easier. I just get to sit back and watch them go. Lesson studies are when the lesson studies that teachers in North Clackamas are participating in this year provide either half day to a full day professional development opportunities for teachers to dive deep into lesson development and application. So prior to a lesson study, teachers identify areas that they would like to focus on and improve in. Coaches work to customize the day to meet the needs that the teachers have identified. So the day is broken into professional learning, lesson plan development, and instruction. Teachers attend this day-long PD and ultimately volunteer to teach lessons right then and there that the team has co-created. After the lesson is taught, the team huddles together to debrief, and we decide which parts of the lesson should stay as is and which parts should be modified. After the debrief portion, the same or different teacher volunteers to teach the exact same lesson to a different group of students with the modifications. At the end of the second round, we come back again, huddle up again, and talk about the changes that were made and what we think about those changes. So far, the lesson study format is very effective, and it's been a highly successful format for teachers to grow their professional development. For PLCs, the next slide. All right.
Our next word
Oopsies. Back. There we go. All right. So this slide here is just to provide an image of the PLC process that we are using. Teachers in our school have chosen a variety of topics this year, including letter sound fluency for our younger grades, blending words, and comprehension for the upper grades. Next. Okay. All right. The next acronym that I'd like to talk about is MTSS. MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. And this is a time when some students who have been identified in a data team meeting, receive extra support in targeted areas. This is usually done in a small group setting, providing more intensity and targeted support. So this first video is a video of our first grade teacher who is reteaching a concept that she taught during her core or her universal instruction earlier in the day. So let's give that a watch to show you what one group looks like.
Our next word is flips. Flips.
Oh, that's easy.
She flips the light switch on.
Oh.
Okay. So David and Antonio, let's count our sounds first, so we know how many tiles we're moving. Ready? Flips.
So what's also cool about this is that she's using some of the instruction that she learned about just a few weeks prior at her lesson study. So it really is cool how it all comes full circle. The next picture up there is a student using our new curriculum called Benchmark Phonics, and that is an intervention curriculum that is specifically for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and it's really fantastic. It's based on around really recent research around the science of reading, so embedding phonics and giving lots of opportunities for students to use those skills that they are learning in their text. And then finally, the last picture up there with all the dots, that's a picture of what we call progress monitoring. And we collect data on students who are in a tier 2, usually twice a month. And then we meet once or twice a month to discuss their progress and to talk about any changes that need to be made.
So using that data, we have 249 total students at Linwood, and we have 114 students that are in a Tier 2 support. And of those 114 students, we only have 5 students who are in a Tier 3 support, which shows that our Tier 2 strategies are helping kids to get where they need to be. All right, so before Brian gets started, we know that students come to us with a variety of strengths and needs. In addition to the academic progress, we're also working to support their social and emotional well-being. Assistant Principal Brian Cates will walk you through the various ways that we meet students' needs in that area.
Well, thanks, Nabil. I'm very excited to share this part. This is a part of our school that I'm very proud of, that our team is very proud of. We really show up for our kids and their needs, and the supports that we have in place really show that. I also just want to quickly acknowledge our SEL elementary coach for SEL, which is Marie Claire Wanakat. She has been so instrumental in the work that we have done at our school. She is a great guide. She's a great coach and a great mentor for many of our teachers and myself as we work through supporting our kids. And I also don't want to leave out a couple of school teams. Llewellyn Elementary School and Whitcomb Elementary School have been very instrumental in what we do as a district and a lot of the practices that we put forth here. So we're truly standing on their shoulders, and I'm excited to share what we're doing. So all of our students at Linwood get a, like Vicki was saying, a very instruction that everybody gets. And that instruction is based on the philosophy that children learn best in communities where their basic psychological needs, autonomy, belonging, competence, and physical emotional safety are met. When such basic needs are met, students feel safe to express themselves and take the risk required for learning. So that is the foundation of our SEL instruction. It's based on research from our curriculum, and it truly helps our kids be ready to learn every day. If we break up really what we do with teaching regulation, it comes into a couple components. One is community building. The next is teaching regulation skills, and then providing opportunities and space to apply those regulation skills. The community building portion looks like students meeting together in morning circles in their classrooms, having various opportunities to meet with different partners, not just the same partner every day, but chances to meet with every student in their classroom. We also do cross-age or cross-grade buddy activities where different classes get together in different aides and do different activities. This helps build the community not just within our classroom, but in our schools as a whole. The explicit instruction around SEL skills or social emotional learning and regulation happens in those morning circles, and it's integrated throughout the day. There's oftentimes that teachers will come back to it within a separate lesson, take a breathing break, remind students what our focuses are for the month or for that week. And then the last piece is just access to those regulation supports. I'm going to show a video here in just a second of what those look like. But just to name a couple, we have our classroom break spaces. Every classroom has a break space that kids can access to if they're not feeling regulated and ready to access the learning. We have school move stations. We have sensory paths and a couple other things as well. In addition to that, our wonderful counselor, Mr. W. Bill Woolrich, spends time supporting our kids and does in-class push-ins and uses a couple different curriculums, including Second Steps. That is very supplemental to our Caring School community curriculum. And then teaches problem solving for our students, problem solving skills through the Kelso curriculum and Superflex. So that was a little bit of a snapshot of what all students get, and going into that same thing when students are showing their needs are higher than just the instruction, the core instruction they get. One thing that we are really proud of is our team collaboration. So once a week, we meet as a student support team and we talk about students and how they're showing up. We look at data, we get teacher input, and we come together as a team and talk about what's going well, and if there's additional supports that we need to get to or to put together, we're going to do that. Andrea Shanks, who you heard earlier, who got the recognition, is also part of that team. And we pull together our expertise, we review data, we ask teachers how kids are showing up, what's needing, and we build a variety of different plans to support kids and work with them to make sure that they are ready to learn and have the skills to regulate. And when that's not enough, the exciting thing about our school is that we have a regulation room, which is a tier 3 support. And you'll see a video of what that looks like, but just to give you an idea of what that is, it's a very structured intervention where students meet with a teacher in the regulation room for 20 minutes at a time, 4 days a week, and they go through a very specific scope and sequence, or a sequence of lessons to help them build their skills, build their capacity to regulate, and make sure that they, again, can attend to the learning in the classroom. So let's take a look at the next video and give you an idea of what those things are. So again, I'm very proud of the supports of our team, of the learning that we continue to do. The exciting news is, as we look at data in the student support meetings, in the meetings we have to see how effective the resource room is going, or the regulation room is going, we continue to see students make extraordinary strides, which is very exciting. And with that, they're showing up even better in the classroom, learning even more.
Thank you. So each year, students, staff, and families are asked to participate in the Youth Truth Survey in order to collect feedback about their school experience. So I've pulled together a few anonymous highlights from the survey last year to share with you, to give you an insight into what we're hearing. As you look at these quotes, you can see if you can connect the statements that are made back to the mission of the school, and think to yourself about, are we empowering students to act with courage in life and strengthen their local and global communities? I like how my teacher helps me, because when I feel frustrated or upset, my teacher is there to help me, and my teacher helps me by motivating me. When I'm in class, I like how we greet each other in different ways every week. I also like how in math class, we work on useful things. What I like about my school and class is that they are always positive to others and don't judge me for who I am. My teacher wants me to try hard in math to explain my thinking. She tells me to push harder beyond my boundaries. A couple of bright spots that I pulled out here from the family and staff survey is that 79% of families agree or strongly agree that the following statement is true. I receive information about what my child should learn and be able to do. That's an 8% increase from 2022 and 9% higher than the typical North Clackamas school. There was also a staff strength identified where 89% of staff reported that the school is a cooperative and team-oriented place. This is compared to 80% of staff at a typical North Clackamas school. We have a very experienced staff, we have a very collaborative staff, and we're very student-focused. So those are some statements that I think speak to the values that we hold there. One way that we strengthen our community is by engaging our community. We have many ways that parents can participate in the school with events through PTA, but we also have school events and volunteer opportunities. I've listed some of them on the screen there. We have jogathon, classroom volunteers, field trips, some of the typical things that you might see within a school. We also have a dance night that's pretty fun where our PE teacher and our music teacher collaborate and they put together a whole unit, and it's a big fun night. And then we have Title I nights where we collaborate with parents around Title I learning as well. And one of the people that we have who's so instrumental to many of those things up there is someone I'm proud to introduce, and this is Bobby Reed. Bobby Reed is an incredible community member. She's dedicated countless hours to Linwood since 2007. She's at the school day in and day out, and pretty much any time that teachers are in the building, so is Bobby. Students know her, staff love her, and I can't thank her enough for all she does for Linwood. So Bobby, would you like to share a few words with us?
I found out a couple days ago that I was going to talk here, so I jotted a few notes down because I'm not real good at off-the-cuff stuff. Hi, I'm Bobby Reed. I'm a volunteer at Linwood for 16 going on 17 years. In 2007, I needed to re-enter life after losing my mom to cancer. The library has always called to me because I had a library in Portland Public Schools. I decided to ask if I could volunteer since I live only a few miles away. I arrived, and at the time, the secretary rushed me down to the library to introduce Shelley Gross, who was there at the time. They ran through my references, and within a week, I got to come volunteer. So my new life began. It started with me helping in the office after working in the library for a while, and ended with me in the production room, which is my home at the school. One thing I liked right away was how the teachers welcomed me into their lives and their classrooms. One thing I do for them is I do some of the tedious staffs that drive me crazy that a teacher would have to do: copying, laminating, and preparing projects for the students where you cut 10,000 little squares. What I'm known as the worker behind the scene. Over time, Linwood has become a family for me, along with all the other teachers in the school. When there is a problem, whether it's a sub or someone is sick or they've called away suddenly, everyone groups together to say, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And as an example, when Brian first came and was introduced to me, he was going to be starting as an assistant principal. What I said to him was, you're lucky, Linwood is the best school in the district. And welcome to our home.
Thank you so much, Bobby.
Every school needs a Bobby.
Every school needs a Bobby. We say that all the time. So that's what I have for you. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate all the community members who are joining us as well, especially those community members who may otherwise be celebrating Hanukkah tonight on the first night. Thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Directors, is there any questions or comments? Director McMahon?
Yeah. Thank you for the great presentation. Congratulations on the increase in the testing scores. I do have a question, though, on absenteeism. Is there a root cause that's 52% seems low for an elementary, and then it's even below what it was last year?
Mm-hmm. And so you're talking about students?
Yeah, regular attenders.
Yep. So we
I hope the staff showing up.
Yeah, I'm like,
I know Bobby is.
Checking. Bobby's 100% attendance.
Yeah.
It's something that we're working on. We know that post-pandemic, we've seen a pretty dramatic shift in attendance. We have conversations with families, teachers reach out, and so we take things case by case, and we know our families well, and there are just many different circumstances that lead to it.
And just to add on that, that's part of our student support meeting team time as well. We look at attendance, we come up with plans. How can we reach out? How can we support families? Do our families know the resources? Yeah, so as a team, there's a lot that we put around it. I think you have a great question. From my understanding and just being part of some of our district problem solving around that, it's a national problem. I know our district is putting resources and thoughts around it. And we're really trying to dive in and figure that out because it's something that we're concerned about it. We want to make sure that we figure out how to support families and students and help them be at school, and at the same time help attend to their needs in any way that we can. It's a balance. We know families are going through a lot, and we just trying to do our part and be in collaboration with them for that.
I should know this, but I don't. Is there breakfast at Linwood? Free breakfast? Okay.
Yeah, all of our students at Linwood have no meal cost when they come. Yep.
Great, thanks.
Any other director have a question or comment? Director Bauer?
Yeah, thank you for the great presentation. And I just had a couple questions on, when you're talking about the lesson studies, are they mostly focused on literacy now or?
Yeah.
Just
right now, most all of them are focused around literacy. Some of them are focused on reading or subtopics within reading, and some of them are focused around writing.
Okay, and I'm just wondering with new math curriculum that maybe it might be there in the future?
I think that's the idea, that this year our focus is around reading, and part of that is that there's new phonics curriculum that we're trying to do professional development around, as well as spending lots of resources around writing instruction. So therefore, our professional development for our lesson studies are focusing around those topics.
Great. And then music is a big part of Sojourner. Is it also part of your school? I mean, both of them. I mean, do kids get both opportunities in music?
Yeah, we just had a music concert today where families were invited. So it is Dave Noyes is our music teacher. He's also one of the music teachers at Sojourner, and he's been there for 23 years. And so it is a big part of what we do.
Great. Yeah, I was able to see one a couple years ago. It was amazing what you do. But thank you, and congratulations on your survey data. And thank you for showing the videos. That pure joy of learning comes through. So you're doing great work. And Bobby, amazing. You're really making that, you define community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, and I have a couple of things. I wanted to kind of ask about the classroom break spaces versus your regulation room. Can you kind of talk about how we go from one to the other? And then how are the classroom teachers and your school psychologist working on students that maybe need the classroom break space? And then how do we get different interventions and maybe more support there?
Yeah, great question. So the break space is a universal thing. Everybody has access to it. Marie Claire Wanakat, again, our SEL coach for elementary, has done a great job of making explicit lessons that teachers go through to make sure students know how to access, how to use them. The regulation room is a little bit different. Not everybody has access to that because not everybody needs that support. What we do is take teacher data, teacher input, and we collaborate on a team to see who would be a good fit for that. There's a very specific process that Marie Claire has helped outline for our district, for our schools that have regulation rooms, to help make sure we're putting people who need that as a support in those rooms at the right times. And then we constantly look at data. How effective is it? Are we seeing growth? Are we seeing improvement? So, and within that, like your second part of your question with the school counselor, psychologists, they're part of the conversation when we're looking at who needs that support and who doesn't. And when we're starting to notice a pattern of that a student is needing some sort of supports, then we go through an intervention process. And if those work great, then we're back to the universal supports. If it doesn't, that's when we start to consider, is the regulation room the next step in the process?
Excellent. I think it's so important, don't we all need a break space, you know? I think everybody needs one. And I do want to also mention the student that was just filled with joy when he was reading. That's what this is all about. Like a student that has so much excitement over being able to read that they literally can't contain the joy. I love that. That's my favorite. So that was wonderful to see. I had one other quick question, not really a question, but an ask more so about attendance data. The report card that we get that's here just says, to kind of piggyback on Director McVeigh, it's 90%. Could we get more detailed information about the attendance? Okay, it'd be nice to see where the other 48% lie as far as attendance goes. So I would love to get a little bit more information about that. So, and thank you so much. And again, Bobby, I think that you embody what we love about this community, and what we love about North Clackamas is people that we know not everybody can be in this school every day, but or even on a regular basis, but we certainly appreciate and enjoy having such wonderful, committed community members that truly care about education and care about our kids and care about the buildings and the staff. I just think it's wonderful to see how dedicated you are to Linwood.
No other place I would want to be.
Wonderful. And also just obviously very dedicated staff with lots of energy and positive things to say, and a true love for our Linwood community. So I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, in our board reports, customarily, board members report on their activity within the school district each month. This time is set aside for each board member to share a report. Director Bauer.
I go first again, huh? I am going to focus on one topic, and that is our successful levy campaign. Yay. We are very grateful to our community for the strong support on November 7th. It passed with 73.1%. There was a strong turnout, even though it was an off-year election and there was really only one thing to vote on. And I kept telling people, it'll be quick, and be sure you fill in the yes. 32% of registered voters participated. The results were 20,546 voted yes. And I also just received this information today that we did not lose a single precinct, which is amazing. And also from our strategist, campaign manager, we sent 88,815 personalized text messages to likely voters. We sent 43,000 pieces of mail to targeted households. This is the campaign side. I know the district had done tons with information, but we are the campaign part, and we can tell people, encourage them, and tell them to vote yes. Why? We reached over 109,000 targeted voters on Facebook with paid advertising. We ran a 15-second online video ad, YouTube, pre-roll, that was viewed by 77,106 times, not by, with over 700 click-throughs to the campaign website. I'm not even sure what all this means, but this is what he told me. Not the best on the media part. But this did not happen alone. This happened because people stepped up, community members, everyone, friends, neighbors, getting the information out to our voters, and especially because they care about quality public schools. And we just saw some fine examples. We had a plan. The Community in Support is the group of people that can organize. We started in the summer. By the numbers, we had 2 or 3 campaign our co-chairs. Director Benalogas filled in whenever needed. Former Chair Lieber Ford stepped up. We hired a strategist, campaign manager, and who had a path to success. Volunteers, my list that I had, Kate Kimball is a person, our campaign coordinator. So far, I came up with about 250 people that did something in our community, and most of them did more than one activity and supported in so many ways. We had community leaders. We had at least, I'll say 15 committees, and we had a person that headed each committee, giving up their time. These people were not paid, hours for some of them, parent captains at each school that they connected, and we got endorsements from every school represented but one. And they were listed in the pamphlet statement. One we didn't get, it was electronic, so we had to pull it. But that's more than I think we've ever done. It was just amazing. We had 11 statements. 140 individuals stepped up to endorse, and we had more to ask. We just ran out of time because there's a deadline. Canvassing, 34 people canvassed, 49 turfs. Text banking, 32 people. I thought we did 59,000, but then Jeremy told me it was, what, 88,000? Oh my God. I know there were a couple staff that did 8,000 in one night, 9,000, and they did it on their own, stepped up. People were doing it multiple times. So this is our amazing community. Not even mentioning district leadership, numerous. They worked so many hours starting in the summer. They were out in the community. I hadn't even had that in my notes, but I'd run into them. They were there talking to people. They gave the information. They couldn't say yes, but they got that important information out. In a number of ways, website, brochures, and approximately 55 community presentations, and it might even be more that I don't know of, that was available to parents at some 30 schools, and open house, back to school night, you name it, they were there. And at PTAs, PTOs, city councils, retired community residents, neighborhood associations, fire district meetings. They were willing to go anywhere, and most often a representative from the community and support joined when we were available or able to say, I vote yes because. It was amazing what they did. So thank you so much, staff and administration and everything that you did, and the communications that was given, the message that you had about the district itself, the points of pride, and informing people of the good work that we do, and giving answers to so many questions. Never back down, you had an answer. When I attended, I was so impressed with your presentations and your staff. Parents stepped up to be leaders at their school. I kind of already talked about that, doing so many things, donating time, canvassing, texting, helping with community presentations, making cash donations. We had more individual cash donations than we've ever had. I've worked on the 2018, the 2016 campaigns, and there were more people. So our budget included more people, maybe smaller donations, and we had to work pretty hard on that. It's not the best time to be running campaigns. I was given all kinds of reasons, but we made it. We had to downsize our budget, but we got the message out, and I'm so proud of what we were able to do. 2 mailings, 250 signs, literature for presentation, canvassing, the statements, social media. So the donations were from PTAs, PTOs. They stepped up generously, vendors, individuals, businesses, elected leaders, and organizations. So thank you. I can't thank our organization, our community enough. And lastly, board members, you stepped up in many ways. I called you numerous times. And if I could find you, and some of you gave by your spouse being the treasurer and doing numerous hours. So I'm in debt to all of you. This is a great community. We have tremendous leaders, people that care about all children across the district and care about quality staff in public schools. It gives us all great hope and gratitude for our community. A quote from Helen Keller, alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bauer. Director McVeigh?
I could go on and on about my November vacation, but other than that, I'll pass.
Director Wachter?
I wish I had a November vacation to go on and on about. I'd like to call a couple of things out, but first and foremost, I want to just say as a board member, Director Bauer, you are a champion among champions for our youth, and I want to thank you for all the ways that you lead in all aspects of your life, and specifically on this one particular occasion with this levy. It would not have happened without you. I'm confident in that.
That's not true. I get so much more back, really.
Last month, I had the really great pleasure of attending the Youth Equity Advisory Committee. I'm one of 2 board members that is assigned to that committee, and really, really enjoyed the first meeting. I have to say, Dr. Williams Rodriguez, tremendous program. You and Kim Amador prepared for us that night. The MVPs of this committee are really absolutely the youth. So many students, BIPOC students, just working together on a common goal, and the goal is to produce a video education training for the incoming staff in the next school year. And it's really, really, it was wonderful to see it all taking shape in that meeting. There was a really informative presentation by Dr. Candace Watson, and he talked about and educated the whole group around microaggressions and microaffirmations. These words are common to us now in North Clackamas School because there's been a lot of education around this, but the students resonated with this material significantly. And I got to know a couple of the students sitting on my left and right, and they absolutely and sadly said that these microaggressions are happening so often they don't even know what to do with them. So it broke my heart, but honestly, I wanted to hear that too. The micro affirmations and microaggressions research is strong and goes back to the 70s and fueled, as many of you know, programs like Sesame Street, which I greatly enjoyed as a 5-year-old, but didn't know that the science was behind that even then in shaping how we can be kind to each other. So at the end of the presentation and the training for the students on the committee, there were some really powerful words shared, and I'll share them with this group tonight. And I think that they're just really key statements, real touchstones that I keep coming back to as sort of as a core for what I think we all believe in. And it's these two statements: each child is a blessing. Full stop. And we all have sacred purpose. So if you can go to a youth equity committee meeting and walk away with those two pearls, good stuff is happening in North Clackamas School District. And thank you very much, Dr. Williams Rodriguez, for leading out in that way. Just this week, a couple days ago, I was able to attend the legislative breakfast at Clackamas Community College. And it was a gathering for Clackamas Community College Board and leadership and school board members from Clackamas County and superintendents as well, and some students. And we heard some really interesting panel presentations, real short but sweet panel presentations on the ways that CCC partners with our school district and creates programs that are really meaningful to just the full spectrum of ages and groups within our county. I'm really proud of that work. Legislators stood up and talked about their goals for the short session, and those were interesting as well. But really great to see the community coming together around the full scope of education from K through college. It was great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And for my board report, other than regular committees, I was able to attend the PACE Thanksgiving, which is our parenting program, and it was just so adorable. The kids are so cute until they're done and they're and they're tired and they're no longer wanting to be in the high chair. But it was just, they were just so cute. And it's amazing. The culinary department cooks the meal for the parenting program, and all the families can come and a lot of the volunteers come. And it's just amazing. It's truly amazing how that program really wraps around those students and makes sure that all needs are met, not just educationally, but all needs are met. It's wonderful. And I was also able to attend, I've kind of gotten involved a little bit with the Echo Schools Network, and they had a winter celebration. And Echo Schools is a sustainable project. We do have it in the district. There's a training coming up in February for anybody that might be interested in learning more. And they really work with our schools when it comes to sustainability. And they have some wonderful ideas, and they have a really passionate group of people and some great North Clackamas parents and community members that are very interested in that sustainability. So again, it was wonderful to see all of them. And during their winter celebration, they actually had a shoe and personal item drive for Wichita. So all of us brought something for Wichita, and then they were able to deliver. So it's just a great group of people. And for those of you that are interested, please reach out, and we can get you connected with someone to start that training process to become a part of that Echo Schools network. It's a really wonderful group of people. And I want to say just really quickly about every school needs a Bobby, and every school district needs a Mitzi Bauer. It's very, very true. I don't even want to know how many sleepless nights there were worrying and wondering and strategizing about how to work on this levy. So we are so fortunate to have Mitzi Bauer in this district, and I know that you don't always want to accept the accolades, but truly someone that I admire deeply, that I care for very much, and that you lead with your heart every day, and you are an inspiration, my dear. So thank you all so very much. All right, now we're going to move on to some numbers. Our year-end financial report. Next on the agenda, I welcome Executive Director of Finance and Business Services, Matthew McCara.
Good evening.
I don't know if you need it or not.
Oh, no, but thank you. Good evening. I bring forward two presentations tonight on the financial position of the district. The first of these is for the fiscal year that ended on June 30, 2023. The projected ending fund balance for that year stands at $66.2 million, which is an increase of 18.9 over the fund balance at the beginning of the year. These reserves provide North Clackamas with a welcome measure of financial security and provide opportunities for supporting strategic investments and initiatives going forward. This is a result of a number of factors, many of which may not be repeatable. On the revenue side, the district finished $11.1 million over the last projection. We benefited from $3.5 million in additional state school fund revenue, including final year-end adjustments. Property taxes were increased by $690,000, and local option levy was increased by $710,000 over the previous forecast. Revenue from Clackamas ESD was $640,000 over the previous forecast. Investment earnings were $2 million over the previous forecast as a result of favorable conditions for investments. Also reflected is $3.6 million in the recovery of prior year expenses from the 21-22 fiscal year. One decrease from the last forecast was in the high-cost disability grant, which ended up $600K below the previous forecast. On the expenditure side, total expenses came in $16 million under budget. Salaries and benefits ended up being under budget by $6 million and $10 million respectively, primarily as a result of unfilled positions. Non-personnel costs held largely to budget, and transfers out were $750,000 under budget. If there are no objections, I'll move forward to the presentation for the current year and then take any questions you may have at the end. The second report takes us to the current fiscal year for the quarter ending September 30th, 2023. Based on current projections, the district is anticipating an ending fund balance of approximately $53.8 million, or 17.5% of revenues, and $12.5 million less than the prior year. This keeps the district in a stable financial position, as does the recent renewal of our local option levy. Some potential activities which may be reflected in future financial reports or budget revisions over the course of the year may include the potential for increased investment income and/or debt reduction actions, changes in how expenses for licensed subs will be recorded. With the changes in the substitute staffing model, that will result in sub costs being reflected as a purchase service rather than under personnel services. Possible staffing retention strategies, and possible support for deferred maintenance on district facilities and facility acquisition. Additionally, and importantly, the financial position of the district will likely allow us to forego staffing reductions in future years that had been previously anticipated. I'd be happy to take any questions now that you may have.
Thank you. Directors, are there any questions? Director McVeigh?
So on our cash position, who makes the recommendation for the investments? Do we have a team? Do we have an advisor?
We do. We have outside person who helps. We also have one of our accountants is also very involved in monitoring that. We've taken a very conservative approach to investments. We stick with mostly, well, entirely treasury bills. There are other investment opportunities out there that may provide higher potential yields, but also come with higher risk, which is not acceptable. So we've stayed with very traditional and conservative investment strategies.
But right now, everything we have looks like it's liquid. It's not investing.
Yeah, we also use the local government investment pool to the fullest extent. We're usually at the limit for that.
Okay. It looks like our weighted average yield is a little lower than market, a lot lower than what market is right now. And so I didn't know if there was a strategy behind that or.
Yeah.
All right, Director Wachter?
Thank you for this report on the year end as well as the quarter of the new fiscal year. Mr. Makara, is there a target or a benchmark for the reserves that we are aiming for, or we have a comfort level around, or is this just sort of like mercurial, the weather blows in more money sometimes and blows out other times?
Well, I will, the board policy calls for a minimum of 5%, but that's not a good place to be in. Yeah. I will say that the fund balance that we have at the end of the 22-23 year, that's about 22.7%. And that number, I think, is somewhat unusual in the context of school districts, but in the larger context of public agencies is not remarkable at all. I know a lot of municipalities often carry a fund balance in excess of 20%. So I think the position that we find ourselves in is an unambiguously good thing.
It's a very good thing.
Yes.
Yeah. My other question was around bond rating. Does the school district have a bond rating, and how is it impacted by the increasing reserve and decreasing indebtedness?
The bond rating, having a larger financial reserves is definitely an asset in maintaining a higher bond rating. We have.
What is our bond rating now? Maybe I could ask that.
I'm not sure. We haven't had to go out for a bond in a while, so not some information that I've had to have at hand. But I'll get that and get that back to you shortly.
Thank you for this great report.
Thank you.
All right, and thank you. And again, just want to appreciate and thank our financial department and, of course, our district leadership. Oh, sorry. My brain.
That's okay.
It's disconnected today.
No.
All right, Director Bauer.
Thank you, Chair. That's okay. I'm kind of over here, because I have a cold. I wondered if there's any information yet on how paid leave was impacting our budgets. So I'd heard a little bit that
it's not very well reflected in this report. Mm-hmm. It was not in place until the Q1 of this year, and this report ends on September 30th. So the paid leave Oregon, the impact of that would only be, there's only a couple weeks of paid leave Oregon that's reflected in this report.
Okay.
It has been a widely, it is a benefit that has been utilized by a number of employees in the conditions that.
So it's just, yeah, still too new. No, this is great, and you're to be congratulated. This is such better news than I'm hearing from some other districts. And I think it just shows too how different districts are. If you have a local levy, it really helps. You have the support. You have responsibly always oversight, good transparency and ratings and audits. That all helps. But I have seen, I've been here long enough so that I've seen fund balance is just kind of like 2-3 years, go away. So thank you for being so responsible.
Oh, thank you. I would like to be able to claim some measure of responsibility for this. But in reality, as I mentioned, this is a result of some conditions which may not be repeatable. I think it's also a reflection of over a number of years, particularly since the start of the pandemic through now, I think the district has made a number has taken a very prudent financial approach. Most of that predates me, so I can't in good conscience claim anything more than having a small part in this, but I will say that that prudent financial approach is what will maintaining that is what will help us maintain a stable financial position.
Also, the relationship between the classified and certified and the bargaining is always, there's a lot of trust and respect. So that makes a huge difference too.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
Now, I will say again, sorry about that, Director Bauer. Just again, thank you for just being so transparent with our community and being fiscally responsible and really thinking long-term with the district. And it's not just about today, but it's also about 5 and 10 years from now and the success of our students going forward. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is policy revision discussion. I welcome Chief of Staff Tiffany Shireman.
Good evening, all. Policy revisions. I'm here for 2 items tonight. First, policy revisions. I am not seeking your action tonight. This is a first reading of policies. So the superintendent's policy review team has reviewed and has drawn some consensus, and the following proposed policy changes have the support of the team. First, in your packet, you'll see BDC. This is about executive session, and this last legislative session, we did have some bills that passed that added new provisions around public meeting law here in Oregon, specifically of import to this particular policy change. We're now allowed in executive session some allowance to meet to discuss the safety of the governing body, which is a provision we have used here in North Clackamas, and then cybersecurity, also another topic that could fall into executive session now. Next, ECACB, and this is the Unmanned Aircraft System, UAS, also known as drones. This is a new proposed policy. It's based on OSBA's model policy. You should know that the use of drones by district staff and third parties has been growing since, an interest in has been growing, particularly since the end of the pandemic, or as the pandemic has wound down. We're seeing reasons including instruction or extracurricular activity interest, footage for external communications or media purposes, and then facility status review using drones for reviewing the status of certain parts of our facilities. This is all increased, and at the recommendation of our risk management team, as well as OSBA and PACE. PACE is our insurance provider, property liability insurance provider, all have recommended that we start to really standardize this process. So we have done so, and you will see there we are in strong alignment with OSBA's recommended policy. IGDJ, this is a cleanup around interscholastic activities, making sure that our language aligns with current state law. And finally, policy KGB, it was brought to our attention that the letter code on this policy are the same letters as the name of the former Soviet agency that in many cases provoked fear and oppression, and have received a request to relook at the lettering. So we are proposing to re-letter to KD. There's no content change within the policy, it's a re-lettering solely. That's what we're bringing forward to you as proposed policy changes, and one addition there. Certainly open to your questions and discussion, and then we'll be looking for your action at the next meeting.
Thank you. Chief of Staff Shireman, does any director have any question or comment? All right, and thank you. I want to thank David Cruz, who was, really instrumental in helping work on the drone policy. So it was great to have his expertise in the room as we were discussing that. All right, next on the agenda is determining election results of local option levy measure. After the discussion, we will be voting on this item. I welcome again Chief of Staff Tiffany Shireman.
It is again my pleasure to bring forward this topic. Director Bauer gave us a great intro earlier, a lot of information shared there. I'm going to go through just a couple of the more mundane pieces just to make sure that we're all crystal clear what we're voting on tonight. That in June, the board adopted a resolution authorizing a local option levy. That levy election was held on November 7th. The elections officer of Clackamas County certified the results and certified that the levy was approved by a majority of the voters in the district. That report is in your board packet. Following receipt of that report, it then, according to ORS, it's your responsibility as a board to then go ahead and take action to accept those results and to move forward as certifying this as the election results. Once you take that action, we will send a letter to the Clackamas County Elections Department indicating that you've taken action. So that is what we're asking you about tonight. And I also just want to say thank you very much for all of your work on this topic, as well as Director Bauer, of course.
Is there any discussion? Do we have a motion to approve?
Chair Benaloga, I move approval of the voter results from the November 7th, 2023 local option levy measure election.
Is there a second?
Wachter, second.
Is there any discussion? Excellent. It's been moved by Director Bauer and seconded by Director Wachter. I call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion passes with a vote of 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Your board secretary has the letter prepped and ready to go, so that will go out tomorrow, indicating your authorization. Thanks a lot.
Excellent. Thank you. Next on the agenda is Student Success Act, Student Investment Account Grant Agreement. After the discussion, we will be voting on this item. I welcome Assistant Superintendent Yvonne Dibley.
Thank you, Chair Benaloga. Good evening, directors. I am here with Jen Dove-Kiltow. She is the Director of Student and Family Services, as well as Integrated Programs. We are bringing forward the Student Investment Account Grant Agreement along with the longitudinal goals, which she will explain, and we seek discussion and approval, or action, I should say. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time tonight. As Dr. Dibley stated, we are seeking board approval for the Student Investment Account Grant Agreement that we have with the Oregon Department of Education. Thank you, Donna. Perfect. Awesome. Tonight, our goal is to share information with you about our longitudinal performance growth targets, which I will refer to as LPGTs because we love acronyms in education. And those are embedded within our grant agreement with ODE and is required by the department for us to share with you all. For the 2023-24 school year, the North Clackamas District expects to access a total of $15,696,316.62 from the student investment account. And these funds must be allocated by districts to provide funding to assist in meeting students' mental or behavioral health needs and increasing academic achievement while reducing academic disparities for students from racial or ethnic groups that have historically experienced academic disparities, students with disabilities, English language learners, economically disadvantaged students, students who are homeless, and students who are foster children. As you've heard in the past, key themes emerged from the district's needs assessment last year, which included a data review and community, staff, and student engagement process. And these priority themes help to inform to develop the plan for the student investment account funds. Our plan is on the district website for community members to access. Oops. I'll take care of it. Oh, we've got it. So just as a reminder, there are 6 programs with common goals that are aligned within the integrated application and plan. And tonight we are focusing solely on the student investment account. Embedded in the grant agreement are our LPGTs, our longitudinal performance growth targets, and we must report on these targets annually with a review of our performance every 4 years. This is the final stage of our application process, and again, those are embedded within the grant agreement. We have set those growth goals for each of the 5 common metrics that ODE has identified, and I'll go over each of those 5 metrics. School districts in the state work together with the Oregon Department of Education and support from our local ESDs, so for us that would be the Clackamas Education Service District, to set and co-develop achievable goals for student performance. We looked at past data dating back to the 2017-2018 school year, and we examined how districts similar to North Clackamas for us in both demographic and size in order to understand the progress of other districts so that we could estimate how much improvement to expect within our own district. We then used a formula that considered various factors in order to make predictions specific to our district. And that ensured that our expectations were based on careful analysis and providing informed estimates of our students' progress. The goal of this collaboration was to give districts a chance to re-examine current data, to focus on specific student groups, and to promote transparency and learning. And importantly, one of the goals is that we don't want districts to be penalized for challenges in available data. We know that in the past few years, the data that we have post-pandemic is there are challenges with specific groups in different parts of our data. So the longitudinal performance growth targets required by the Student Success Act offer a snapshot of key points in student progress and growth. However, they don't cover every aspect of student and cohort growth or overall system improvement. It's crucial to recognize that funds and programs can support changes in these metrics over time, but there are also valuable investments that may not immediately affect these metrics. So these are the 5 required metrics. We have 4-year graduation rates. We have 5-year completion rates. We have 3rd grade reading. ninth grade on track, and then regular attendance. So those are the 5 metrics that we've written goals around. In order to set realistic expectations for improvements in schools, we need to look at how long it took successful schools in Oregon to make, schools and districts in Oregon to make meaningful changes over the course of multiple years, rather than setting overly ambitious goals and trying to transform everything quickly. We know a more effective approach is to recognize that improvement is complex and that we should focus on specific areas and groups, putting our efforts and resources where they can make real and lasting differences. So what we've done is we've co-developed 3 different goals to measure our progress. We have baseline goals, which are the minimum level of realistic growth. So the baseline represents the starting point or minimum level of progress that's considered achievable and realistic. It serves as the foundation. Then we have stretch goals, which are more ambitious, but still realistic. The stretch level signifies a more ambitious goal beyond the baseline. It acknowledges the potential for greater improvement while staying within the bounds of what is still considered achievable and realistic. And then we have our gap closing goals, which focuses on the reduction of academic disparities for focal student groups. And the gap closing involves efforts to minimize or eliminate disparities in academic performance among specific groups of students. And these groups might include those facing unique challenges or historically underrepresented populations. The goal is to ensure that all students, regardless of background, have equitable opportunities and outcomes in our educational system. So you will see all 3 of these goals in the next slides. There we go. So the first one is around the 4-year graduation rate. As you can see, we started with the 23-24 school year and move all the way through the 27-28 school year. We are starting this year with our goals in the high 80s percentages, and we're moving over the course of 5 years to greater than 95%. You can see the baseline, the stretch, and the gap closing in all those areas. The 5-year cohort completion rate starts us again in the 90s and moves us to greater than 95%. For our students, our 9th grade students on track, once again, we start in the 90s and we move over to greater than 95%. 3rd grade English language arts proficiency starts lower than our others, but these are realistic goals for us. They do provide that gap closing target. We know that we are putting a lot of focus on our early learning, our early literacy, and we believe that those concerted efforts are going to help us meet our goals. And then finally, we have our regular attenders. So this is around attendance. And so again, starting in the 70s, we heard tonight about Linwood and some of the things that they're doing to focus their efforts around attendance, and that is a goal for us district-wide. And over the course of 5 years, we intend to strengthen our opportunities for students and families and raise those levels. That is what I have for you tonight. I would welcome any questions or comments.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions from the directors? Director Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Benaloga. I just wanted to point out we had a discussion earlier, and there's so much information here, and there's so much work behind it. And this report itself is about 40 pages, and it's just phenomenal how much information you put together, and I appreciate all of that. And it'll be exciting to see us meet these targets, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Director McVeigh? Oh, okay. Okay. Or just checking. Anyone else have a question or a comment? Well, thank you for definitely for thinking a little bit outside the box and doing our best. I mean, I'm sure the attendance numbers and of course the numbers for our young readers are, I'm sure, concerning. And I mean, all of us would like to see that, grow exponentially. So we appreciate that, that there's those stretch goals that we're definitely reaching as high as we possibly can. And we're hoping and putting those resources and our staff toward making those goals, and of course, getting as many of our students successful as possible. So I appreciate all of that effort. Right. Is there a motion to approve?
There is. I make a motion to approve the student investment account grant between a grant agreement with the Oregon Department of Education.
Is there a second?
Our second.
Is there any discussion? It's been properly moved by Director McVeigh and seconded by Director Bauer. I will call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes with a vote of 4-0. Next on the agenda is the superintendent evaluation process. After the discussion, we will be voting on this item. You will find a timeline in your packet. Is there any discussion? Do you have any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
Chair Benaloga, I move to approve to the need to develop this and adopt an evaluation process for this superintendent's evaluation.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? It's been properly moved by Director Bauer and seconded by Director McVeigh. I will call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion passes with a vote of 4-0. Next on our agenda is the Math Pathways Report. I welcome Executive Director of Teaching and Learning and Professional Development, Tammy O'Neill, who will introduce our guests.
Kind of practice this thing. This thing there? Nope. Okay, we're rolling. Yeah. Yes, please. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here today. We appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we love, which is instruction and curriculum and professional development. So here with me today, we have Associate Director of Teaching, Learning, and Professional Development, Diana Nye. And we have our math instructional coach, Dr. Luke Weinbrecht, here today. So tonight, our time, we're going to spend it demonstrating how our mathematics pathway aligns with our district's strategic goals, the Oregon math standards, and utilizes North Clackamas's district equity lens. We will also share with you some key research focusing on math instruction, and we'll address some historical misconceptions. Lastly, we'll demonstrate how this work aligns with current college and career readiness standards, the areas and standards of preparation that colleges and employers are looking for. Throughout our presentation, we will share with you information that speaks to the heart of our work. Historically, math programming has excluded students from true mathematical thinking that invites them to learn concepts in the context of how mathematicians use their skills and knowledge to analyze systems, solve problems, and connect to other STEM disciplines to make meaning of their world. The Teaching, Learning, and Professional Development Department anchors itself on the promises North Clackamas School District has outlined in its strategic plan. We appreciate the depth and attention to the whole learner. We know that students who are engaged and see their own brilliance want to learn more and are able to persevere when learning is challenging. Our job in TLPD is to facilitate the process to identify the practices, curriculum, and professional development our staff utilize to build confident and capable learners ready for the post-secondary pursuit of their dreams. Today, we will share with you information that speaks to the urgency of our work, but also the opportunities grown from partnering in a nationwide endeavor to create mathematical pathways that develop students who are critical and flexible thinkers, able to approach and engage in math collaboratively, and who see themselves as doers and capable mathematicians. All of our courses prepare students for post-secondary outcomes. This means students will engage in learning that not only provides them with foundational knowledge and skills of the discipline, but also in activities that develop deep conceptual understanding. We also need to provide our students with instruction that develops their mindsets as mathematicians. Learning was not meant to be easy every day, and it's certainly not something in which being the fastest means we learned the best or the most. In fact, we want our students to go beyond memorization and procedural fluidity to engage in critical thinking that asks them to consider possible approaches and see their work not as problems to answer, but as an exercise to expand their reasoning. We do this by providing meaningful learning experiences that allow them to see the value of multiple perspectives and utilize an expanded set of skills that prepare them for the more complex thinking needed for success in advanced coursework. For the board members who served in 2019, you'll recognize this graph. Before the 2021 school year, our students, at the end of their 6th grade year, were placed into one of two courses. One that included what was at the time the math standards for 7th grade, and the other that was designed to compact the standards of both 7th grade and 8th grade into 1 year. At that time, 30% of our students who had either taken the regular or compacted math did not take a 4-year of math, and the number of students who took an advanced math class in high school was even lower. Since we know that 4 years of math continues to be recommended for college applications and that scholarship and competitive post-secondary programs seek applicants who take the most rigorous course of study offered at their school, this was a strongly recognized area of improvement. The next two slides have been added from your original board packet. We wanted to provide additional context as to the purpose and goal of the new Oregon Math Standards, North Clackamas School District's current math pathway, and the national movement to reimagine math education to better match how students actually learn. Currently, the students who started 6th grade in the new math pathway are 10th graders. So we will not have data yet that allows us to assess if we have increased students enrolling in a 4th year of math and in an advanced course of study. However, we do know that post-COVID, the urgency present 4 years ago has actually increased. Last year, we saw an average of 50% of our students taking a 4th year of math. Additionally, of the students who did enroll in calculus, who is often considered the highest level of math offered in our high schools, only 8 of the 31 students who enrolled or registered for the advanced placement class actually earned credit by passing the class or passing the advanced placement exam. This slide shows the current year's enrollment. Since all 9th and 10th graders take the same newly aligned courses, you see the enrollment data for those courses generally coincide with the overall enrollment data of our district. However, the last 2 columns show the enrollment in advanced courses for current juniors and seniors. These are the students who follow the old math pathway, identifying students for acceleration at the end of their 6th grade year. The areas highlighted in gold reflect lower enrollment rates in these advanced courses as compared to the overall rate of enrollment for the race and ethnicity in North Clackamas School District. As you can see by the 10% enrollment gap for our students identifying as Hispanic and the fact that none of our students who identified as American, Indian, or Alaskan Native enrolled in these advanced courses in either their junior or senior years, the former system failed to lift many of our brilliant mathematicians. Dr. Weinbreck is going to share with you the engaging pathways being designed for our students, as well as how the new course pathways reflect the rigorous standards aligning conceptually to support the learning of all our students.
First, thank you, board members, for the ability to share our work that teachers and leaders have done over the past 6 years. I'm proud to work for a district who centers student achievement and experience.
You need to say, is this thing on? Is that thing on?
Is it working now? Yeah. Okay. I'll start again. I'll do again. First, thank you, board members, for the ability to share our work that the teachers and leaders have done over the past 6 years. I'm proud to work for a district who centers student achievement and experience within our mathematical pathways. This visual shown on the slide shows the core classes that all students take: geometry and data reasoning, followed by advanced algebra. After completing the core courses, students will have access to 3 math pathways, each representing a different branch of mathematics that connects current high school work with post-secondary options. This change, called the 2+1 course pathway model, allows students to experience a more modern, equitable, and varied course pathway. Students can choose which courses they are interested in pursuing. These pathways align with student goals, but all prepare students for workforce needs. For example, collaboration, problem solving, the use of technology, and critical thinking skills, and position students for college admission success. In order to achieve this goal, robust and coherent grade level math courses throughout grades allow students to develop the conceptual understanding and procedural skill needed to continue to achieve at high levels. Additionally, 2 important goals were addressed within this model. First, each pathway will provide students with the opportunity to earn college credit, removing an additional barrier that has prevented some of our students from entering post-secondary opportunities. Second, students will have the opportunity to take 4 years of mathematics in high school, which we know increases rates of college success and applicability into their fields of study. In addition, in the journey towards mathematical pathways for all students, we needed to reorganize the content covered in our traditional course pathways. This was aided by the revision of the Oregon standards in 2021 and our belief that students have the ability and the right to be successful mathematicians. On the screen, you will see the traditional algebra, geometry, algebra sequence on the left with the major concepts covered in each course. A team of middle school and high school teachers worked to analyze the standards and determine where each of these concepts would be covered. We also looked at the overall coherence of a student's development of their conceptual understanding across grades. And we know that through cyclical yet increasingly challenging tasks, students develop the desired fluency to work between and within mathematical concepts. So the concepts traditionally taught in Algebra 1 have been moved to Math 8, our data reasoning course in advanced algebra. Geometry concepts remain within the same course, and the concepts traditionally taught in Algebra 2 move into data reasoning, advanced algebra, and pre-calculus. It's important to understand that traditionally students weren't required to take Algebra 2, which further removed them from higher level courses and from college admission requirements. Through our mathematical pathway design, we are able to provide the needed knowledge to all students, setting them up for success in all pathways. While our most advanced math classes have not changed and remain the same, now all students will have the prerequisite skills and knowledge to be able to access this course. I'm going to turn it over to Executive Director O'Neill, who will now address some common myths.
So my daughter was looking over my shoulder last night on this presentation, and particularly this slide. And one of her favorite classes is AP Psychology. And she, maybe or maybe not so accurately, described how they had recently studied the concept of learned helplessness. And she said that her teacher had actually used an example of when students were told they were a language arts person instead of a math person, and how they started to act on those expressed limitations that have applied to them and do poorly in the subject area and fail to continue on with their studies. So I appreciate my 16-year-old examining a concept and explaining the concept in a way that seems so easy for something so complex. We know kids are incredibly perceptive. As the research presented here and in your materials demonstrate, not only do kids who have been tracked in the lower math classes take on negative perceptions of themselves as learners, but all learners can be successful in the homogeneous groups, and it benefits them both academically and social emotionally.
Great. I'm going to talk about the myths you also see in your packet and on the board. One of the myths is that if we place students accurately, if we placements that process accurately and fairly reflects past achievement and future potentials. And I just think of my own experience as a student. I blossomed differently than the person next to me, right? People might have blossomed before I did. And if somebody would have put me in a pathway when I was younger, I may not be the person I am now, right? And so students grow at different times, and we can't really accurately place somebody in a track until any time in their career so that they can blossom and have the mathematical experience that all kids should have. Teaching is easier when students are in homogeneous groups. I think of my teaching experience, and when I have heterogeneous groups, students at different abilities, the conversations were so much richer. When we only bring one perspective into a classroom, it really keeps only that level of thinking in the room.
Underlying the previous discussed myths sits the question of achievement. Research has found evidence that suggests that removing tracking and teaching all students as if they were high achievers did not drag down high achievers, but rather pulled up the performance of average students within math classes when math classes were detracked. Additionally, several research papers have found that students previously tracked into higher courses achieve at the same rate when they're in detracked settings. As we've previously mentioned, these findings are supported and rooted in research by national organizations, as well as a body of research into achievement, student mathematical beliefs, and college success. I'm going to now hand it over to Associate Director Nye to talk about our intentional focus in curriculum.
Yeah, so if you look at the triangle we have presented, there are three cornerstones into our teaching and learning. There's a content area standards, instructional materials and curriculum, classroom instruction, and assessment. And what our job or goal is to connect all this professional development so that we can build a really strong system of instruction. So I get to talk about our math adoption that's coming up. So my cards are coming back out. So if you think about when we were kids, we as a collective whole, how many people had a TV that looked like this or similar to a TV? You don't have to raise your hand. So if you think about in the past, when the adults who are in this room were in school, we taught students in math, correct and incorrect answers. It was all about if you got the answer correct, right? And then we used formulas to calculate answers. We memorized and we listened and took notes. It's because our technology was here. Not that the technology wasn't like amazing technology, but we're at a different place now, right? And so now I'm afraid to turn on the TV because it looks like this, right? And every time I turn it on, I'm like, I hope that I'm going to get to the right channel. So this is technology now. The math we were taught is not what students need in the jobs and careers they will have now or when they grow up. Now we are teaching students to go deep into their math in challenging tasks that have multiple entry points, and they have to go real deep. They're rigorous with depth to create thinkers and mathematicians. Real world, real life. They have to be able to make sense of real life problems, deconstruct the problem, and use tools to appropriately solve problems. Students will have to build, analyze, and justify models, structures, and reasoning. They have to construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. Reason abstractly and quantitatively. They have to be able to argue their point and show that their conclusion is what is the best thinking that they can do then. So I'm going to give you an example of something I saw this week, not in North Clackamas, make that super clear. Okay. So I was with a community of students, and they were working on this problem. They were 5th, 6th, 7th graders. So the question was create an equivalent equation to this. And I already put the answer there, so you don't have to figure it out. So I asked, how did you do that? And they looked at me and said, well, we moved the letters around. And I said, why does this work? And they couldn't tell me. I said, can you show me a similar or a real life problem where we do this? They said, no. They said they just were told to move the letters around, combine the ones that are the same, and put parentheses around the ones that aren't the same. Sometimes this is what we think math is. And our goal with our adoption is to really get deep into math. Because then I asked them this, and I am that mom, by the way. Take an opportunity to teach anytime. Is this the same thing? And the answer was no. Because they said, it's about the letters, not the numbers. What a missed opportunity. Our goal with our upcoming math adoptions, there's 2 at secondary and 2 at elementary curriculums that we are looking at. And our goal is to really get into what is a why, what is a what, and what is a how of math. And then we think about, and not only that, not only do you need to understand that, but you also need to know, when are you going to use this in life? Because I'll tell you, I use this every day. I use it in baking. I don't cook. When I'm doubling or tripling recipes. I use this when I go to the grocery store, when I figure out costs, and when I don't personally code, but when people code. Or I think like a big job right now, cyber hacking. This is what you need. And so when we look at how we're preparing kids for the future, this is what we're looking at.
So as we continue to move towards a more equitable mathematical experience for all students, we also need to continue to push our instructional practice to achieve the depth of knowledge that our students need moving into their post-secondary options. We are preparing students for careers that may not have yet existed or for problems that we have not faced. To do this, we have engaged in 3 areas of intentional work. First, we have developed an instructional model that centers student inquiry and engagement in rich mathematical tasks. Unlike procedural activities that focus on memorization and scripted, predictable answers, these types of tasks allow for multiple entry points for our diverse students, allowing them to extend their own knowledge and revisit concepts within relevant ways. The instructional model blends the needs of the group of students while maintaining the focus on each individual student's development. This allows for whole group instruction centering collaboration and discourse, while allowing for small group or individual instruction to reteach or to extend a student's thinking. Second, we have developed curriculum guides that ensure each student in our system experiences a coherent, developmentally appropriate, and rigorous sequence of mathematical concepts leading to grade level proficiency. Lastly, we have engaged in rich research-based professional learning through Teachers Development Group. Through this work, our teachers have dove into current research and pedagogical practices, experienced Math Studio classroom learning, and individual coaching. Together, these 3 areas of professional learning allow for instructional practices that include each child and ensure that we are preparing them for the post-secondary options that they choose. Lastly, student learning is grounded in how actual mathematicians engage the habits of mind and interaction that lead to the college and career readiness within the field of mathematics, but also in other fields as well. For example, in engineering, medicine, applied science, and even the liberal arts. I'm going to turn it over to Executive Director O'Neill, who will bring it all together and talk about next steps.
So our next steps, as you've heard, include the development of engaging pathways that provide an opportunity for students to earn college credit while pursuing their interests. We also see opportunities to integrate more CTE courses, especially with the data science and the coding. As you can see by this excerpt from the Harvard University website describing their mathematics admission requirements, colleges understand that successful students experience subject area learning not in a vacuum, but in a way that surfaces, connects, and models the complexity of real-world applications. Many universities, including all the schools in the Oregon University system, no longer list a set of titles that may or may not reflect comparable levels of student knowledge or even accurately represent the topics the students have been exposed to. They don't list them as prerequisites. They're not comparable because the schools will describe a course with in different ways than another school will. So now, like this example, the universities describe a more expansive way the opportunities successful students will have pursued to prepare themselves for their post-secondary endeavors. So we thank you for your time on this and the opportunity to share this really important and really large body of work that we have done over the last probably decade or so. Do want to thank all the educators in our district. This has been a ground up swell grassroots with our classroom educators every step of the way, leading and with their hearts and their care for their students. So we're able to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Directors, who has a question or a comment? Director Bauer.
We're ready, Mitzi. Remember, former, a long time ago. But I actually was a mathematician for 33 and a half years at Bonneville. So what you're saying about conversation, language, solving problems, when I was reading, and I'll be honest, I did not click on every link. You had so much material here. I'm going to go back and try to accomplish that, but there's so much material here. And then we did receive some from the community too that had links, and I need to go back and look at that. But there was, I'm not even sure how to start, because what you're saying is so true. You know, I didn't solve a problem alone. We had team meetings every week, every morning we actually did. And I reached out to others, and sometimes I was struggling, and that would help so much to talk to the other ones. But I would contemplate in my head, and it might come out a lot later. And actually my own skill set, I wasn't able to take higher math in the rural community we were in. I actually scored higher on English literacy. And I thought, really? I didn't even like writing. But I enjoyed math when I was learning it and solving puzzles. So you're right about it has to be something that's fun, relevant, all of that. And you had one video in there. Everybody needs to listen to that. No, I had it written. I had about 5 pages of notes. It was the, what was it? His name was Dan. He did the, oh, here it is. Dan Finkel, the TED Talk. And he had 5 principles, and they were all so real. So I encourage everyone to read that. You know, it starts questioning. It's so important. Thinking occurs when there's time to struggle. And that's when you get that aha too, later than when you figure it out. Teaching is not the answer key, or the teacher's not the answer key. And it was so important to, you say yes to what kids say. You don't say that's wrong, you know, because that affects them inside. So when I was a high school teacher, the kids would walk in the room and half of them or more would say, I can't do math, or I'm not a math person. And right away that affected them. So that's why I asked the question too about training. Professional development is so important, even at a very young age. So one of my questions is, it looks like you have that planned, and I hope it's even filters down to the younger and getting people on board with that. So I think you touched on it, but maybe, is there anything more you want to say about professional training?
Absolutely. And we've been working with the Teachers Development Group for 6, 7 years. It's been ongoing. And of course, during the pandemic, had some pauses on it. But we actually engage with them almost monthly in our schools to do studio is what it is called. And teachers model lessons. Other of their colleagues are watching the lesson, and then they debrief with each other. And we have the TDG coaches there as well. And that is something that we'll absolutely utilize all K-12 actually. Do you guys want to, Luke, do you want to describe that a little? It is such a powerful, yeah.
So studio, like Tammy was saying, studio is a powerful experience. 8 years, my son's 8. So 8 years ago, I was a studio teacher myself in my math class. And it was the largest professional learning I've had to date. The ability to work with a coach from outside the district to really dive in to students' thinking and to how I wanted to present this to students, how we were going to get students to grapple with the learning and have them do the cognitive load and not me, was immensely powerful to think about that in long periods of time. And then within a studio, there's a piece of learning that happens at the beginning around like how to actually teach math. Then we go and we experience whatever that piece of learning is. For our teachers, this last cycle has been around the habit activator. So how do we get students to think about math and use the habits of mind and interaction in meaningful ways? And we go see the lesson, and sometimes during the lesson we call small huddles to talk about what are we noticing with what's happening with students, what should we do next, what should we try out, and we get to experience that. And then afterwards we engage in about a 45-minute debrief, really thinking about students' thinking and the evidence that we saw in their discourse and their work. And then after that, there's some real strategic planning that happens for our teaching teams. So our teaching teams are able to get together with the coach and myself who's there to really intentionally plan utilizing the learning that they experience in the morning to bring that back into the classrooms. The cool thing we've been able to add over the last 2 years is the ability to do resident coaching. So our TDG representative comes with us into the schools and actually coaches side by side with the teacher. And I've had that opportunity as well with some teachers, and it is amazing to say, like, what do you think? What should we do? What's the next step? And then give it a try. Teachers have reported that has been, that 2-day experience has been one of the most powerful experiences they've had with professional learning, because it's applicable and kids are there and we're trying things with them and we see the results.
So I'm going to brag on Dr. Weinbrecht because he would never, but he is, he actually has been asked by TDG to lead this work in other districts he supports. So we're really leaning into the sustainability. We're certainly want to build more and more instructional leaders and expand that impact as well.
Well, and you have data from the previous that you showed us. I'm glad you added those because that was one of my questions. How do you provide if a child does need more support? It looks like you touched on that the units you have provides if people need more help and also more challenging if you aren't doing a group activity.
And I'm going to have Luke dive into that. But something I really think about often is nobody's good at all things or bad at all things, right? It's very, very important that we break down the concepts and pre-assess students. Do you already know this? Do you need to go deeper? And then if they do, then in that area, you should be accelerated, go deeper, have extensions. And in the next one, when we're working on a different unit of study, you may not. So that's a large piece of it that we want to meet each student where they are in every unit of study on all the standards base, so we can really, because that'll fluctuate, right?
I think what I would like to add is part of our instructional model is specific around our small group and individual instruction. So we are prioritizing that time in class and instructional time to do that. In that time, students can engage in a lot of different things that are based on what they specifically need. One of our universal supports is our engagement with Dreambox. And that allows for students to engage at their levels that they need. But I think what's most powerful is when we can use our knowledge of what students know and understand from our pre-assessment that comes with our curriculum, from our FastBridge data, from an exit ticket that's given at the end of the period, or conferring with a student during the class and figuring out this kid needs this a little bit of extra or is missing this particular piece. We have time built into our class to pull them into a small group to give them that direct instruction and support that they need. I also want to highlight that the small group is not just for students who are struggling. We are also thinking about the students that need extensions. So the curriculum that we're piloting has they're called Are You Ready for More challenge problems that we are pulling small groups of students that are going deeper into that specific content and that unit and in that specific domain of math. And so in either direction, students can receive that support. So.
I'll keep it to one more comment. I mean, because I do get excited about this. And another quote that was in there was, if all students get a chance to experience the beauty and power of authentic mathematical thinking, maybe it won't sound strange when they say math. I actually like it. Yeah. One other thing, how does this fit the sequence? You have geometry for algebra with physics in high school. I mean, are they able to?
We just had this
do that
conversation
problem
today.
solving? I mean,
Yeah,
and
it was
there was a
awesome.
parent that asked me about that even a year or so ago.
Yep, absolutely. You want to talk about our conversation today, actually, with the parent? That was wonderful.
Yeah, we are continually thinking about how our ninth graders are experiencing ninth grade, and with our geometry moving down from 10 to 9, from 10th to 9th grade has been a shift for our students. We also know that it's rigorous math that our students can do. What we have found is we've started with geometry, and then we've gone into the data reasoning part of our course, which this part of the course represents new standards that came out in 2021. What we are hoping to do in the coming year is actually to flip those two around. So when students are coming into 9th grade, they'll start with data reasoning, which is accessible for more students. It also requires that students are grappling with data and making sense of that through a variety of different platforms and statistical models, which directly aligns with what they're doing in the physics courses. So Megan Sternberg, our science instructional coach, and I are partnering in the spring to really, along with the 9th grade coaches, to really figure out how can we support students engaging in physics and in data reasoning so that we have that successful start. And I believe that when students have a really good experience with their teacher and there is a foundation built of trust with their teacher, that when we get to the more rigorous concepts of geometry, they have that relationship to fall back on. And they know what success feels like, and they know that in this space, they can experience success. So that is our hope as we continue to revise and move forward.
Thank you. I'll quit for now.
Thank you. All right, Director McVeigh.
Thank you for the presentation. Someone who had to take Math 95 his freshman year in college. Our curriculum in the state hasn't worked for a long time, so for many of us. I guess my question is, what's your goal for this presentation? What's the outcome that you wanted? And then what's the journey? What's it look like for the next year that you need board support or board help with?
I appreciate that. Certainly to give an overview of our work, but really to dig deep into the why. Right? This wasn't somebody endeavored to do to make change for change's sake. It was that our students deserved better. And we have brilliant educators just ready to engage in deeply in a new curriculum that really sets up the foundation for all of our students. So I just really wanted to get at the why behind it, that part of our job is to dig deeply into the science of education, which is changing. It's rapidly changing. How we taught students when I started 25 years ago has been proven to be faulty. And so it is our job to make sure that we react to that, to make sure we are building both the professional development opportunities. We select curricular materials, and this is a great preview. We will be coming to you with our recommendations for our adoption here soon, so you're getting a great background on that. And then really building, the instructional guides, the classroom guidance that demonstrates the elements that should be present in a classroom. And just so you know, this is learning that we engage with our administrators and with teachers along the way. So we're all continuing to engage with our mathematicians that are on site and in all of our subject areas, because we're all on the road learning to do better for our students. Love it.
Thank you, Director Wachter.
Thank you for this presentation. This took a lot of time and thought, and thank you for sharing your why and the foundation setting that you're doing prior to then coming with curriculum recommendations. This is the right way to do it, so thank you for doing it this way. Also, your passion for math is real, and I love that. And thank you for all that you are doing in this space to make all of our students successful in math. It is one of the most important skills, as we know, that transcends all parts of our lives. The question I have really is just, are there other jurisdictions, other school districts that you can point to that have seen some improvement in the equity pieces of this math pathway? Specifically, the slide that you called out that showed some groups of our students are not enrolling in extra math specifically. Are there other examples where this has led to successes in equity lens?
Well, I'm going to invite Luke to talk about some national, but I will say that we started very, very early in when the new Oregon standards came out. We started to engage our staff with those, while most of our districts in Oregon waited until the adoption was upon them. So I really feel that we're at a great space to say, okay, we know what the concepts, what the instruction should look like now, and the standards, we've engaged with them. So what curriculum choices should we make to match this, instead of doing it all at once, which what goes first, what do we adapt in there? So I will tell you that a lot of districts reach out to us to ask what we have done, because this is not a North Clackamas district phenomenon by any means, and we're all seeing this need to engage students better. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was trying to recall all of the school districts that I've thought about and read about. The two that come to mind are San Francisco and LA. Are the two kind of like really large districts that have engaged in the work for a really long time. Also, I know school districts in Massachusetts. I was reading some research again today about that. So those are a few, and I'm happy to provide any additional resources if you need. So.
All right, thank you. I also have just a few questions. And I have some that I'll ask on the back end, like about PD, because I know like professional development is the continual, robust, ongoing professional development is also a huge piece of that. So I'll ask that later. But I have a couple of things. So how are we supporting kids that are struggling, and how are we supporting those students that are, I mean, like in real time, how are we supporting those kids that are struggling, and how are we supporting the kids that are excelling?
Well, as we talked about, there needs to be time and space in a class period for all of that, right? And so the flexible groupings, ensuring that those are based on the assessment data pertinent to that instructional unit that is being offered to the students right then. And I say that because who moves in and out of those groups to need extra support or an extension, that will vary. And so as we, as you know, we have secured now assessment tools K-8 for our learners. So those are being able to FastBridge that we came to you on a weekend to discuss. So that's the kind of assessment information. Additionally, Dreambox actually digs into where each student is, and there's the curriculum assessment. So the first step is identifying who needs help and what help do they need, or who needs extension and when do they need that extension. And then in the course of that unit or that lesson, the students will get one-on-one support. They will get support in a group. Our learning specialists are in the classroom supporting groups as well in the class. And again, they aren't going to be necessarily students identified for special education. It's only students identified for special education, for instance. It's going to be all students of that group that are struggling on this concept. So getting that small group, because we want to go with, we want to go more intensive, and we want to get additional dosage of support. Additionally, our students who have already shown basic understanding of the concepts, what are some additional exercises they can endeavor in to deepen that work? Where are the applications, and not only applications to math, but the other STEM fields, engineering and computer science and our science fields, that they can use and apply as well. So that is happening in an ongoing way inside the classroom. And there's additional supports that are going to happen as far as students who receive, services from other sources in the classroom.
All right, thank you. And then there was a slide that listed a lot of classes, IB and AP classes. Are those available at all of our high schools?
Yes, and that's something that to note, that the classes that we have offered historically will continue to be offered. Our highest levels of math are still offered, and I will tell you, Chair Benaloga, I'm going to come back to you in 2 years, and I'm going to share with you how many more students are taking math in their 4th year, and how many more students are in our advanced classes.
Excellent. That's exactly what this board and the directors would love to hear. So since we don't have that yet, what data are we using that's showing that it's even successful so far?
Well, we have the students enrolled, obviously, and we can look at grade data in the success and the success inside the classrooms. But since those were the data pieces we're really trying to move, so now we have students successful in those Algebra 2, in our geometry and data reasoning. And so as they matriculate on to their junior and senior year, those really are the data points we're trying to move. So do we know that right now we're concentrated on the implementation of the courses, right? And getting the curriculum and getting the learning for our teachers and making sure that they have the understanding in order to support their students with some significant changes, right? Anything else?
All right, thank you. And just one more quick thing about parental involvement. How are we engaging with parents? How are we how are we making sure that the stakeholders and our parents are involved and that they understand? Because I do wonder, I don't know whether everybody sees this big picture and really understands the goal. So what have we done and how are we engaging our parents?
Well, and I think certainly when we were presenting the choices for the adoption, right, that came out very strongly. The materials we are adopting are very much in line with this modern math focus of our nation. And you bring up an excellent, and I have to say, and our counselors and our administrators, right? This is just conceptually very, very different. And I think we need to do some work, honestly, with that why behind. This is the why. This is how we want to support and counsel our students. I just found this awesome article in Parent Magazine about supporting their children in this new math endeavor that, again, is matching how children learn math. And yet, when we grew up, when math didn't look this way, parents, including myself, have very much struggled. And so we need to engage our administrators deeply, and it'll be anchored and really clear once we have the math adoption, because it's layered throughout. They'll be able to see the whole package in front of them. Those pieces of why do we select curricular materials have certainly been communicated to the community, including our staff. But as we select materials and then match it with the instructional moves and the instructional needs that will happen, that'll become more and more clear. I think it's something that when we get into it, we're going to see it very quickly evolve into, and people are going to be able to see the thinking that we are supporting our students to achieve, the kind of depth of thinking.
All right, thank
Chair
you.
Benaloga, I'd like to add just one thing, please. I think one of the things that we really try to do is to connect and have that interdependence with a lot of our other departments that absolutely support our schools. We had great success in having the podcast that talked about our literacy and our literacy initiatives and everything we're doing. And those are the things too. Like, I think that one of the brilliant pieces of this presentation is providing information about the myths and just kind of real life experiences of what connects to parents, what was our experience versus what is now. So really connecting with our communications department to utilize the routines and the processes that we already share with our community so that everybody learns, like, oh, this is why we're doing this and this is what's happening. As Executive Director O'Neill shared, our focus right now is going to be purchasing, approving, purchasing, and implementing the curriculum. And then from there, obviously along the way, as we will integrate the grant for literacy as well, that we will find ways in which we support and connect with parents, again, so they know. I don't think the nuances of instruction, if interested, great, but I think like the big pictures, the why we're doing it, the connections, this is why it's different, because the bottom line is we have a responsibility and an ethical responsibility to ensure that our students are ready and prepared for life beyond their graduation date, of which many opportunities will be in the STEM and STEAM fields. So this is an incredible component of that, and we're going to really lean into that.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much. This is a huge presentation, lots of information, so much for the board of directors to really look through and learn. And I know when I was in high school, I walked into geometry and I struggled, and the teacher told me it was too hard for me and to get out. He told me to transfer out. And I've really lived, I've always kind of said I'm, more a wordsmith, definitely not math, but it's really about changing that whole entire, that mystique around mathematics, that everyone is using math every single day. And how am I love that where you said everyone's a mathematician, because we are every single day. But maybe my abilities are clearly not up to Director Bauer, being a mathematician for 30 years. But still, we're all using math every single day. And it's such an important thing for us to not only be teaching our students how important it is and how important math is going to be and will be and is always going to be in their life, but also just teaching our families how important this is. And I think that's really, I'm excited for that. And y'all know I love curriculum nights. So I will,
We will
I
see
think
you
they're
there.
fascinating. I went to the French curriculum night. I don't speak French, but it was so interesting to learn from her and to understand what that curriculum was going to do for the classroom. Director Bauer and I attended together and really got an opportunity to see just how well-rounded. So I'm very excited for math curriculum night. I will be there.
Good.
Yes, Director Bauer.
There's just so many things going off, but math night with parents, have you considered that? Just examples when you do the open houses, because, and the whole idea of it's okay to struggle and let them struggle and learn with their children. And I think one thing I realized too, after I taught 6 years and, struggled with that, but I took a class called Math in the Mind's Eye, and I knew, even when I was teaching, I don't feel like I knew math until I taught it. It was a whole different level. But Math in the Mind's Eye was even related to high school math, algebra, and I don't know if you've heard of it, but it was using all these manipulatives for the equations. And when you put that equation up, in my mind, I started to see a model. So I'm sure you're doing that, but it's all these examples, but it's also because kids learn in so many different ways. So. But thank you for all of the research too. I think the parents would, this why is real important. And if you can get some of that, if parents are interested, I think it would be great.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely. And I just thank you again. Wonderful presentation, lots of information. And thank you, directors, for really thoughtful, great questions. Appreciate it. So before we end tonight, I always like to end with a quote. And I think Mr. Rogers was just the advocate of our time, right? And just truly supported children. And this is one of my favorite quotes of his. As human beings, our job in life is to help people realize how rare and valuable each one of us really is, that each of us has something that no one else has or ever will have, something inside that is unique to all time. It's our job to encourage each other, to discover the uniqueness, and to provide ways of developing its expression. So I hope that over the course of the next school year, we find that wonder and we find that uniqueness. And in that spirit, it is now 9:02 p.m. and this public meeting of the North Clackamas School District